are going to be looking at transformations today and tomorrow. Today we're going to look at translations, reflections, rotations, and tomorrow we're going to look at dilations and symmetry. So today we're just looking at 3 types of transformations as well as the composition of transformations, which is when you do 2 types of transformations in a row to a figure to get a resulting figure. So let's start by looking at translations. We have a couple of key words first, and the first one is image. The image of a figure is the new figure after a transformation. So this could be after a reflection or a rotation or a dilation, just any of them. You have an original figure and a new figure. The image is the new figure, and if you had an original figure with a point A in it, the image of point A would be written as A prime. Looks like a little apostrophe, but that is read as prime. Pre-image. This is the original figure before a transformation. And sometimes we will give you the new figure and ask you to come up with the coordinates of the original figure. So we would ask for the pre-image. The pre-image is the original, so it would just be point A versus point A prime. Rigid transformation is a transformation that keeps your figures congruent. It's called a congruent transformation where the figures, the old and the new, the image and pre-image are congruent. So the same size and the same shape still. So we're going to start with translations, and a translation is just basically a shifting of your figure, maybe moving it right or left or up or down. And there's 2 ways that you might see the rule for a translation written. Sometimes you'll see it written like this, where I have the rule here in bold in the directions. This is read as xy such that x minus 5, y plus 8. That is one way to write the rule. Another way to write this rule, we would write a capital T, and then we would have some subscript with some pointy brackets. And inside of the pointy brackets would just be the change on the x, which is minus 5, and the change on the y, which is a plus 8. And that is vector notation for it. So we have some sample questions here. I'm just going to do the first 2 for practice. What is the image of B, which is at 4, 2, and we are using the translation rule that is highlighted above there. So if we want the image, we want the new one, we want to apply the rule as it is, which means we're going to subtract 5 from the x and add 8 to the y. So if I take the x value there, and I subtract 5 from the x and add 8 to the y, that will give me my B prime, my image, my new point. And 4 minus 5 is -1, and 2 plus 8 is 10. On question 2, they want us to find the pre-image. When they are asking you for the pre-image, that means we want to basically go back in time. We want to undo the rule. If you want to undo the rule, you must do the opposite of the rule. So we are going from f prime to f, and that's why we want to do the opposite of the rule. We're undoing the changes. So the opposite of the rule here, the rule was subtracting 5 from the x, so we will be adding 5 to the x. And the rule was adding 8, so we're going to subtract 8. Just doing the opposite of the rule to find the original point. -3 plus 5 is 2, -4, and -8, -12. And so that is the original point F. And the notation for that is just not having the prime after it. But those are the answers. Why don't you pause the video and try numbers 3 and 4 and see if you're able to apply this skill of applying a translation rule and also finding the pre-image working backwards. So pause now, try it out. Hopefully you tried these out. Let's see if you agree with the answers that I am getting. If I want the image of D, that will be D prime. Make sure you had that notation. And we want to subtract 5 from -1, that's -6. And we want to add 8 to the 5, which will put us at 13. On the pre-image question, we want to go backwards. So again, we're going to be adding the 5 and minusing the 8, doing the opposite of the rule here. Getting H, not H prime. 7 plus 5 is 12. And -5 minus 8 is -13. All right, how did you do? Hope that you did good there. If not, if you have questions, you can always see me in tutoring or ask during class if we have work time or during the warm-up. Number 5 here, we want to apply a translation to a figure. Again, another notation you might see for this, capital T, +3, -2 in pointy brackets like that. That is the same thing, just a different form of notation. So since we're adding 3 onto the X, that means we're going to go right 3. And since we're subtracting 2, we're going to go down 2. And the notation in middle school would have been different for this. Like they might have just said translate right 3 down 2. I'm going to use the points on the graph and I'm just going to count from each point. We're going to move 3 to the right and 2 down. And then be sure that you label that with your prime notation. 1, 2, 3, and 2 down. We are going to be asking you to identify these coordinates when we test and quiz you on this. And that is because it's a lot easier to grade your points than it is to grade your graph. We probably are going to have you graph it as well as write the coordinates. So just kind of know that in advance. Be very careful when you are listing the points. Remember that the X goes first and the Y second. And so these would be the points of your new coordinates. Number 6 is having you write the rule. And it is so important that you be very careful about you identify what the original was and what the new one is. Sometimes the new one will have dash lines, sometimes the original will have dash lines, sometimes they have different letters and we're just telling you like ABC became DEF. So you always want to look in the instructions and make sure you know what was the original one and what is the new one. So in this case, I'm looking at my prime notation. I can see the A prime there, so that is the new figure. And A is the original figure. Since I'm writing a translation, I know that I'm just going to be looking at how did it move, left, right, up, down. And I need to look at one of the original points and one of the new points and just really focus on that. So if A is moving to A prime, then it's following this slanted line path. And we can draw in like a slope step for this. I'm going to go up and over. So I can see that it's going up 2 and that it's going left 3. So I need to just write this description into proper notation. So I could say x comma y such that x minus 3 because it went left 3 and y plus 2 because it went up 2. Or I could write it as capital T pointy bracket -3 2 pointy bracket. Either of these would be a good way of writing this rule for the translation. So that is how you do translations. I'm going to keep each of these probably in a separate video, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this and I'm going to start a new video for reflection.